my favorite thing, I get to introduce my friend. So some of y'all know that Connie and I have been best friends for a long, long time. She's a national speaker, actually an international, and on the ground in foreign countries and on Zoom. She is currently with Ambassador Speaker Bureau, a consultant and executive coach, both business and personal. She offers leadership development, board training for both nonprofit and for-profit businesses, volunteer training, and is a sought-after speaker for fundraising banquets across the nation. She is also the author of Spirit Thrilled, which is a devotional, leads a Bible study of the same name, and as of today, has dropped her first podcast, Igniting More, in partnership with Heartbeat International. I'm so proud to welcome my friend, Connie Coleman.
No, he is the administrator at our house, that is for sure. Well, yeah. When he puts his foot down, he puts his foot down, and I try to listen. So Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote a poem, and when they dedicated memorial to the American Revolution, and it goes something like this. One of the verses says, "By the rude bridge arched the flood, their flag to April's breeze unfurled. Here once the embattled farmers stood, and fired the shot heard round the world." The first shot of the American Revolution is what he's referring to. This revolution was at the heart of the issue, being ruled by a government that did not hold their values, or for that matter, didn't value their holdings. This shot heard round the world proved the colonial militias could stand up to the establishment of the English government, the British forces, and ultimately paved the way for American independence in 1776. However, make no mistake, this shot was the beginning of the revolution, not the end. And there would have been no independence had Americans not continued their endeavor, remained faithful, and fought the long, hard battle to freedom. Our day has heard such a shot around the world as well. The overturning of Roe was this shot heard round the world. It was started by grassroots movements, and despite, at the time, people thinking that it was the end, as we know, 2.5 years later, it was just the beginning, and we will not win this fight either without remaining faithful and continuing to fight the battle. I want to say that I do realize that anytime you're talking about life and thereby abortion, I do realize that it's a very sensitive topic and it's a very complex issue. So I do want to say first, I never want to speak on this issue without fully acknowledging that, without realizing that with the statistics, 1 in 3 women and thereby men that we come in contact with every day have been in this position and have had the issue of abortion in their lives. I also do not want anybody to hear me speaking condemnation or judgment. As you'll hear later, there's a lot of reasons for that, but I do want to say up front, for anybody in your life that you know that may have fallen on this battlefield of abortion, in Jesus Christ, there is always redemption, fulfillment, hope, and healing. And so I never want anyone to hear me say anything that would be condemning at all. That is not my heart. I also want you to know, if you know somebody that needs somebody just to talk to, I am happy for you to reach out to me to have conversation and begin the process of letting go of shame that may be gripping them. I know in my life it gripped me for over 20 years. And so I never want to bring that on anyone else. Again, I also realize this is a complex issue. We're not gonna settle one thing tonight. It's a multifaceted issue. It's an ingrained issue. There's not one simple part, one bill, one law, one conversation that's gonna settle anything. But I do hope we can do 3 things. Number 1, we can confront the conversation. Number 2, we can clarify the communication. And number 3, we can issue a call to courage. So those are my goals for tonight. We're a small group, so we're just gonna keep it casual. I'm just gonna talk to you from my heart. I have see this whole big thing? I'm not saying all that, just for the record. So, but I do wanna touch on some things. I'm not sure, I may go kind of deep dive into some things. I may stay on the surface with some things, but again, this is a conversation starter. This is not, Connie has all the answers. This is not, if I disagree with something, I'm right, they're wrong. Let's have a conversation tonight. And so I hope y'all will enter into that with me. If we're confronting the conversation, please notice, I said conversation. We want to speak truth with courage and compassion, and it's a conversation, it's an exchange. It's not who has the best soundbite. We live in a Instagram kind of world, and we want everything solved in 160 characters or less. Soundbites won't get this topic done. Soundbites won't solve the problem. They won't speak to the hearts and minds of the people around us. Let's be better than that. Let's not use all sound bites, and let's not buy into every sound bite that we hear. The second thing on confronting the conversation means I'm confronting an issue. I don't have to confront a person. We can speak truth, we can speak from the heart, and we can speak to the issue, not the quality or the person standing in front of me. I did, however, say confront. That doesn't mean that confrontation has to be hostile. Some of y'all, I can see, are about my age, and back in the day, this may not be entirely appropriate, but there was this movie out called Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze. And in it, he is a cooler, and his first conversation with his bouncers in this bar, okay? He tells them when they're dealing with someone that's acting up in the bar, he says, be nice. I want you to be nice. Ask him to walk, but be nice. If he won't walk, walk him, but be nice. If you can't walk him, one of the others will help you, and you will both walk him, and be nice. So as a cooler, we can be nice. I also want to think of tonight as putting a pebble, or anytime we have a conversation, putting a pebble in someone's shoe. Me walking up, and Cope, you're on the front row, and I'm just gonna take full advantage of that. How thankful are we that we have a young man here in the midst? Thank the Lord of you, young man, but now I'm gonna use you in the future. So all is well. But if I go up to Cope and I am strong-arming him, and I'm yelling at him, and I am just bashing his strongly held, firm beliefs that he's had all of 15 years, okay? There's some of us in the room that have had values that we hold dear much longer than that. How likely is it that I am going to bash him into saying, oh, I get it now, you're right, I was always wrong, and the fact that you beat me over the head with it, I'm just gonna lay down everything and agree with you. No, not even for 15-year values, much less 50 and more. However, we can have a conversation to where when he walks away, he's got a pebble in his shoe where throughout the next day, it causes him to think about it. Or maybe he even walks just a little bit different when he leaves our conversation. That is how we change hearts and minds, not by bashing people over the top of the head. So the question is, but Connie, aren't we kind of past that point now? No. Even though this world is ugly, and instead of being just a little in disagreement, we've got this great divide going, and actually it's split more than just down the middle. What we are past is accepting half-truths and hidden agendas. I'm over it. I hope y'all are as well.
That's right.
When we look at the history of Roe, I want to be careful here, and I'll just say up front, I am pro-life unapologetically. I have been for years. So even if I don't agree fully with everything the pro-life side has done, and I don't, I am still very sold out pro-life. When you look at the story of row, Norma McCorvey, I wanna just, y'all may not be completely familiar with her life story, but she was an interesting person. In 1969, and just for the record, that's the year I was born, so this rings home even from there. At the age of 21, Norma McCorvey became pregnant for a third time. Her friends advised her that she should assert falsely that she had been raped by a group of black men, that she could thereby obtain a legal abortion under Texas law, which prohibited most abortion. Due to a lack of police evidence or documentation, the scheme was not successful. McCorvey later said that it was a fabrication. She attempted to obtain an illegal abortion, but the recommended clinic had been closed down by authorities. Her doctor suggested she consult Henry McCluskey, an adoption lawyer in Dallas. She stated she was only interested in an abortion, but agreed to meet with him. Eventually, McCorvey was referred to attorneys Linda Coffey and Sarah Weddington, who were looking for pregnant women who were seeking abortions. The case, Roe v. Wade, took 3 years of trials to reach the Supreme Court. McCorvey never attended a single trial. During the course of the lawsuit, she gave birth and placed the baby for adoption. McCorvey told the press she was Jane Roe soon after the decision, stated she had sought an abortion, but she was unemployable and depressed. In '83, so about 10 years later, she told the press she'd been raped, and in '87, she said the rape claim was untrue. The pro-choice side, and I'm just gonna say it as straight as I know how, the pro-choice side prostituted her story. They prostituted her heart. She had limitations in mental and emotional capacity, and they just abused that and used her for their gain. And most people don't know that she never actually had an abortion. They used more than just her. But the sad truth is that later in life, she accepted Christ, or she said she did, accepted Christ. And the pro-life side did just as bad, using her story and prostituting her story for their own good and their own gain, and traipsed her around the world using her story and keeping most of the money while they did it. Again, later in life, she recanted all of it. She recanted her faith. So where did she really lie on the issue? We really don't know. But this is a story of one woman who both sides used for their own gain and their own purpose. And my heart is, we don't ever do that again. So if we're talking about communication, here's the easiest thing. We just stick with the truth. The nice thing is we have truth on our side. We don't have to come up with mental gymnastics to make things happen or to fit things into our profile. We have the truth. It's something about this simple. Imagine with me that you're standing at your kitchen sink washing dishes, facing this way, and your child comes up behind you. And if you raise boys, this is probably a little more realistic than I raised girls. But say your child comes up behind you and says, "Mommy, Daddy," although y'all would probably be at a workbench not washing dishes, but I digress. "Can I kill this?" What do you need to know?
What is this?
I mean, if it's a bug, might be a little cruel, but go ahead. If it's a kitten, probably not. That is the crux of the issue before us. What is this? And if it's human, no, you can't kill it. It really is that simple. There's a pro-life syllogism that just makes it simple. Premise 1 says it's wrong to intentionally take the life of an innocent human being. Pretty simple, wait. Premise 2, abortion intentionally takes the life of an innocent human being. Conclusion, therefore, abortion is wrong. Again, very simple, very basic. But if we're sticking with the truth, one thing you'll hear today is Texas women aren't having abortions anymore. It's not legal in Texas anymore, so there aren't abortions in Texas. And I will just tell you, we're kidding ourselves. I was in Las Vegas, Nevada, about a year ago, doing some consulting for a pregnancy center there. Signed on as a turnaround CEO with them for a short amount of time. And their facility was on a private street, catty corner to the busiest late-term abortion clinic in the state. I mean, that close, you could see it. I met a couple of Texas girls who had come there for abortions, and it broke my heart. But Nevada, since the power has gone down through to the states, Nevada has chosen to be what they call an abortion tourism state. And there are many more besides Nevada. I say many, I think there's 14. They pay women to come. They'll pay you for your plane ticket. They'll pay for your hotel while you're there. If you have other children, they'll provide daycare or childcare while you have the procedure. They'll put you up for the weekend while you recover, and then they'll fly you home at state tax level expense. And they literally package it as abortion tourism. No, we didn't win with Roe. We're not done yet. Kansas, I was at a pregnancy center in Kansas just a couple of months ago. It's a quick drive straight up I-35 to Wichita, Kansas. Now there was a story a long time ago where the tiller, I believe, was killed. That was at an abortion clinic.
A doctor.
Yeah, an abortion doctor that had an abortion clinic there in Wichita. Make no mistake, the pregnancy center I was at, within 2-mile diameter, had 3 abortion clinics close to it. And while I was there, 3 Texas girls came in that one center. Texas women are still having abortions. New Mexico is probably the biggest state that they go to. New York, tourism. Our women are still hurting. Our women are still having abortions. It is still a battleground we have to fight, but we have to fight it with truth on our side. If we don't fight with truth, if we don't stick to truth, we will never win hearts and minds, and that's the only thing that will ever end this, whatever it is. I have a whole lot of words going through my mind and I don't know. End abortion, we'll just leave it at that. Next, if we're gonna clarify our communication, and we're gonna park here for just a little bit as we work through this. We're gonna illuminate life with logic and love. Sometimes what we want philosophically and ideally and even spiritually, we can't achieve legislatively. Our philosophical and what we can achieve legislatively are sometimes not the same. Take Nebraska, this past voting round, they had 2 ballot initiatives. It was quite confusing, 434 and 439. 434 would reduce the age that abortion was allowed in their state to 12 weeks and enshrine that. 439 gave the constitutional right to abortion and enshrined it up to 40 weeks. So, you have pregnancy centers and pro-life work going on in the state that's trying to get the word out and get 434 people going for 434. You have the pro-choice side that's fighting hard for 439. I don't understand everything about Nebraska's government, but it's a two-house system something, and so both were on the ballot at the same time. Both had to have a certain percentage of the vote to make it through. So voting no, as some on the wide right were saying that you should vote no on both because 12 weeks wasn't a far enough deduction from 20. So you should vote no. And they were hardcore pressing people to vote no, which had people voted no or not voted on both, you would have gotten the one. It was a weird thing. Thankfully, they did pass 434, so they got it reduced to 12 weeks. Now, would everybody working on that and that sits across from girls that are in this situation and that counsel those girls, would all of them have loved to see it go to 0 weeks? Yes. But they weren't willing to risk 40 to get 0 when they could get a reduction to 12. Philosophically, they knew what they wanted. They could not get it legislatively. Sometimes they are not the same thing. And you say, well, that's Nebraska, right? I got good news and I got bad news. It's Texas.
Yeah.
Texas has for the last 4 sessions and has now this session filed abolition bills. Which philosophically, I will say, at heart, I would love that. 100%, I would. In 17, HB 948 was introduced by Tinderholt, didn't make it out of committee. In 19, HB 896, Tinderholt didn't make it out of committee. 21, HB 3326, Slayton introduced it, didn't make it out of committee. 23, Slayton introduced HB 2709, didn't make it out of committee. 25, HB 2197 has been introduced. It is in committee. A freshman by the name of Money, I believe he's from District 2, has introduced it. Why do I care? Why should you care? Well, it goes a long way. They use a phrase called equal protection under the law. That sounds good. Right? Like we want that. We think everybody needs equal protection under the law. Again, I say, be really, really careful of lovely taglines and sound bites. Equal protection under the law, what these bills introduced and what it does is it takes the exception clause out of the homicide code. So you have a woman, I'm gonna use you.
Go ahead.
You have Connie Swain over here who gets an abortion. There's an exception in the homicide code for abortion performed by a medical professional where she cannot be prosecuted for murder. What this bill and those 5 bills do is take that exception clause out, where if she has an abortion, we can prosecute her. The people promoting it say, we're not saying what she deserves. We're not saying that she deserves anything. We're just saying we no longer want the exception in there. That sounds good. But if you have a homicide code and you take the exception out and she has just murdered a child under 10, tell me what options the prosecutor really has. They're not telling that part. But equal protection under the law sounds great. And they'll tell you, if you're really a Christian, you should want this. If you're really pro-life, you should be for this. If you really care about life, you should want this. It's happening at a national level. It's happening across the country where I go. It was happening in Nebraska. If you notice your national Republican platform, they lobbied hard. They spent a ton of time and money, and their much reduced platform, pro-life platform that is on the national platform has the equal protection verbiage in there. It's pushing, it's coming, they're wanting it. I'm gonna go a step further. Also, I was at the Supreme Court, I may just like to tell y'all all of this. The same group that's pushing for equal protection were yelling at the pro-life people. Screaming, megaphones, yelling. Pregnancy center workers, it's their fault we still have abortion. I don't understand it, but that's the agenda, is to close down the pregnancy centers who offer care, who come alongside, who offer resources, who do all this phenomenal work, but let's shut them down. Why would you wanna do that? It's just like anything else, follow the money. Follow the money. So I wanna dive into one thing because I am pro-life. I do believe that it is a baby in the womb. I do believe it is a life. So how do I balance not wanting women to be prosecuted? For that, we look at, what would be great if I knew which book that was in. It's chapter 8. Chapter 8. John, chapter 8, that's helpful. Where the woman's caught in adultery, and she's brought before, the people of the day at the gate, the temple gate. And I just lost it. I told you, too many notes. So as Jesus was speaking, the teachers of the religious law, that should prick our ears, and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery and put her in front of the crowd. This woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses said to stone her. Jesus, what do you say? This is where he wrote in the dirt. Their motive was not righteous. Their motive was to trap him. Their motive was to put him in a trap. So he stooped down and wrote in the dirt. They kept demanding an answer, so he stood up again and said, all right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone. And stooped down and wrote in the dust a second time. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest. Only Jesus was left. Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you? No, Lord, she said. And he said, neither do I. Go and sin no more. Yes, what she did was wrong. Yes, by law, she technically deserved to be stoned. But what they missed is they broke the law, because Mosaic law requires that the wife or the woman and the man are brought for judgment together. And it requires a witness. And they didn't do either one of those. They just bypassed their side of the law to get to her to put Jesus in a trap. Don't fall for the trap. So what's the difference in, say, Connie? Cope was driving drunk. I told you I'm gonna pick on you all night. He was driving drunk and he killed somebody. Should he be prosecuted? Yeah. She had an abortion and she killed somebody. Should she be prosecuted? I don't think so. Here's the difference. Nobody spent 50 years of legislation, of social media, of movies, of conversations saying, Cope, it's okay if you go out and drive drunk and kill somebody. But we've had 50 years of the legislators telling us it's okay to kill babies, of movies telling it's okay to kill babies, of every manner of everything saying that this is an okay practice in the land of America. And now we want to put her in jail because she's bought into the lie that the legislation helped propagate. They're not putting anything in the law that says, oh, by the way, we're gonna also penalize the man for conspiracy to commit murder. That's not in there.
Please tell them what you said you want to say to the legislature. Please.
Ye who are without sin, please cast the first stone. Ye who haven't had 5 wives, cast the first stone. Ye who haven't gotten your assistant the Plan B pill cast the first stone?
Right.
Come on. Yes, we need heart change, we need mind change, we need all kinds of change. So what about the tough issues of rape and incest? That's what everybody always wants to know. Again, there is no easy answer. You're talking about rape and incest. Without the woman getting pregnant, it's not an easy answer. Is there empathy? 100%. 100%. I was never raped. I was, however, abused by a youth worker, and that was traumatizing enough. But adding the trauma of abortion on top of the trauma of abuse doesn't help the woman. It doesn't help anyone. You know what percentage of abortions are from rape and incest combined? 1%. Combined. Combined. So there's a lot of people that will say, hey, for the sake of the argument, would you concede rape and incest? Now, most of the time, they're not really worried about rape and incest. Again, we're victimizing the victims to make our point, because we don't really care about the rape and incest victims. We're just trying to, put the other person in a vice to say mean and hateful things. However, if you get someone that is truly seeking answers and truly looking for understanding, for a moment you leave the 99 and you go for the one. For a moment. Number one, you're mixing two very different issues with emotionally high EQs, rape and abortion. That's a tough place to have a conversation and to separate the emotions of both. Number two, you're piling emotional trauma on top of emotional trauma. I have never once heard a rape victim who decided to carry to term say they regretted their decision. Never once. I've never heard them say, I wish I had aborted my child. Most of the time, again, we're just re-victimizing the victims. But think about punishment. The rapist, if we're gonna be, level grounded here, do we assert the death penalty for rape? Nope. Do we assert the death penalty to the woman that was raped? Of course not. Why would we assert the death penalty to the baby that had nothing to do with it? No. We've got to be careful how we talk about when we're clarifying our communication, and one of the big things is to know your audience. Know your audience. There's a whole lot of people out there that if you just do a biblical stance for life, they get it. They're looking to scripture. They're reading Genesis 1:27 where it says God created man in his own image. There's 4 questions that I have trained, breaks it all down to these 4 questions. What does God say about the value of human life, including life in the womb? What does God say about the shedding of innocent blood, including abortion? What hope is there for experiencing God's forgiveness for the shedding of innocent blood, including the guilt of abortion? And number 4, what does God call us to do to stop the shedding of innocent blood? Scientific basis. Science proves it, that at the time of conception, the earliest stages of development, the unborn are distinct, living, and whole human beings. Every embryology book anywhere now backs that up. So, since science has now been acknowledged, even among the pro-choicers, what are they moving to now? Y'all have heard it. A philosophical argument. Personhood. Now we're gonna argue that the baby doesn't have, it's not as much value as the mom, even though we acknowledge now that it's human. It doesn't have as much value because it doesn't have personhood. They define personhood as the ability to see yourself in the future and form attachments. That's not newborn. Was that 2? So their argument now isn't just for abortion. Now they're setting the stage for infanticide, and we're seeing some of that. We're seeing with the, I can't think of the name of the bill, they just passed it, where if the baby lives after born alive bill, yes. They don't even want that. How do you argue women's health care and say, well, but it was born alive, but it doesn't deserve to live, we're just gonna let it live? I'm telling you, there's some women who have been, have survived botched abortions, and they're some of the most powerful testimonies I've ever heard in my life. Personhood. There's no morally significant difference between the embryo you once were and the adult you are today that would justify you killing you during the earlier stages of development. There's just not. So third, a call to courage, to step up, speak out, and stand for life. First, it's not about us taking cheap shots at the ones actually on the battlefield. This has happened. I can testify to this one, just in case y'all were wondering, I'm not really pro-life. So, y'all can take that and put that, yeah. You know, let me just tell you, I am very much pro-life. I was placed for adoption at birth. I grew up. When I was later in life, I found a letter where I had left everything I owned at 16 to the pro-life movement. I couldn't remember why. But as I started thinking back, I had a Sunday school teacher at 14 who showed us Bernard Nathanson's movie, The Silent Scream, from back in the 80s. And it had made such an impression on me that after I was abused by that youth worker, I made out a will and left everything I owned to the pro-life movement. I lost that and went on about life. And when I was 20, I had my own abortion. Because the guy I was madly in love with said he wasn't about to hurt his parents by telling them that he'd gotten me pregnant. So yeah, he just left me to deal with it. I did on New Year's Eve. Yeah, New Year's Eve. And for 20 years, I never told a soul. Never told another human being that that had gone on. I had somewhere decided that God had forgiven me. I thought I'd forgiven myself, but I was 100% certain that not another living soul would ever be able to forgive me for what I'd done. Now, I had a profession going on. I also had been in full-time ministry. I was traveling the state preaching the word of God, and I would have a nightmare at night that when I got up to speak, my little secret sin would be playing out on a big screen behind me and the whole world would know. So, at an event, when I'm speaking, we had the local, Wise Choices, the local pregnancy center come because we wanted women, we wanted to say, hey, yeah, you're all fired up, yes, you're excited, here's some different places you can serve. And so Wise Choices came in and did a presentation, and she never once mentioned post-abortion care or healing, and she was kicking herself because she had it. But it's all I heard. And so I went through Forgiven and Set Free. I went up to Wise Choices here, went through the program, started volunteering, sat on the board of directors for 3 years, was the CEO for 6 years. God moved me to work for Passion Life, which is an international ministry. I was the national arm for that. And he's just opened the door. And my whole heart has been, God, I don't want to be the abortion girl. I don't want to be the abortion girl. And as only God can do, he just kind of whispers and says, okay, why don't you be the life girl? Why don't you be the life girl? And so now the thing that I was terrified would be my platform is what he's used to just set me up here as a trophy of his grace and his goodness and his heart for who we are. So before you come at me saying I'm not pro-life, I'm gonna need you to back up for a hot minute. When all you've done is run your head and have not rolled up your sleeves one time, and that's as far as I'm going with that story.
That happened.
It happens. It
I'll
happens.
give the details.
Yeah.
No, not today, but it's gonna take all of us to do our part. We're gonna have to quit adopting the other side's narratives. For instance, the pro-choice side loves to say, well, those pregnancy centers, all they do is force women to make the decision they want them to make. Well, there's a whole lot of people think that pregnancy centers just eat bonbons and hold babies, but that would be a great day in the neighborhood if it was true. But the truth is, now we've started adopting their narrative saying, well, we can't just be pro-life, we have to be pro-abundant life. And again, while I am pro-abundant life, there's no reason that we should expect the pregnancy centers to do it all. They're a triage center. They do great work. Wise Choices has their gala coming up in a couple of weeks. They stick in there with these moms and babies until the babies turn 3. But no one goes to a brain surgeon and says, well, you're not really doing your job because you're not also treating cancer. We only do that with pregnancy centers. We don't go to any other we don't go to Wise Hope and say, well, you know, all you're doing is protecting women from abuse. You're not doing X and Y and solving the problems of the world. They can't do it all. They were never designed to do it all. Our churches have to get involved. We as individuals have to get involved. We have to be about the kingdom and be about having these conversations. And so I'm just gonna tease this out here a little bit. I've started a new organization. It's called The Cloak. It's the Center for Life Outreach, Advocacy, and Knowledge. And it's all about bringing people around the table to have these conversations and start coming up with some things that make sense, involving people in conversations that can make a difference, and just truly being dedicated to relentlessly pursuing truth. That's where we win. We have truth on our side. We can't ever, ever drop truth for agenda, ever. So yes, the first shot of American Revolution was called The Shot Heard Around the World, and today we have a different cry, not of war, but of witness, a cry for the voiceless, a cry for truth, and a cry that will carry across this continent and beyond, because the world is watching what we do. I just want to share, it's vital. Since I loaded this page as I started talking, worldwide there have been 3,302 abortions just in the time we've been sitting here. The world is watching, the world is listening. We have to make a difference, because one voice can spark a movement, one truth can change a mind, and one action could save a life. Thank you.
I asked her to stay up here I want her to clarify, not clarify. Unfortunately, because we talk so much, I know a lot more, and so there's a couple things I want her to kind of clarify. When she talked about abolitionist, that is becoming a thing. Sounds awesome. And it's literally to abolish abortion. Sounds good. A lot of people jump on that bandwagon. But that's where it's scary, because that's what is going to open the door to go after the moms. And that broke my heart. No, I've never volunteered at a pregnancy center, but come on, guys, if y'all ever had to sit there, I have listened to her call me and crying her face off after she's had to deal with somebody who's got a horrible situation and she doesn't know if they're gonna keep the baby or not. Most women that go in for an abortion are devastated. They don't know what they're gonna do. Most of them are not using it as birth control. And so to go after these women that are already traumatized, to me is so ungodly and it's horrific. And it's a thing, right?
AATX is the Texas version. It's abolish abortion TX dot, I don't know if it's com or org, but you can see the legislators, they have a pledge,
A lot of them have signed it.
and there are legislators that have signed the pledge.
Another piece of that, just to give you an example. So back before Roe v. Wade was overturned, if y'all remember, we had the heartbeat bill. And the heartbeat bill was going to, it didn't go far enough. She
6
got,
weeks.
she got into an argument with somebody that we all know and love, because they wanted it to go all the way. And she
And
said,
so would I love that,
yes,
but we
well,
couldn't get it that, when
in,
that was.
in politics, in government, you have to accept the baby steps. You've gotta be willing. And so
You gotta negotiate.
you've gotta negotiate. Thank God the heartbeat bill passed. How many babies were saved?
Thousands.
Thousands.
Even between the heartbeat bill passing and the overturn of Roe, because they'd already done the trigger bill as well,
Yeah,
both of which were opposed by the far-right abolitionists.
yeah. So that's one of the things we have to, because y'all, this is a big deal right now in our state house, okay? And in the Senate, so.
And I'm just, he is our elected official.
Yes,
Our Representative Hopper has signed the pledge
he signed it very early on.
very early, before he was elected, so.
Yeah. And that's not meant to go against, it's just y'all's gotta.
Explain
It
that,
is
what that is again?
It's to take
Out that clause.
the exception clause out of
So does that just take it out for abortion, or does that take it out for homicide?
abortion. It's, there's an exception clause in there that basically states if you've had an abortion, you can't be prosecuted for murder as long as it was done by a licensed whatever. They just wanna strike that. So when you look at the other statutes, it's done premeditated, it's knowing you're doing it, it's a child under 10. So how does that,
So that could be challenged,
Well, there's so much to it too, because
who's
number
gonna
one,
report it?
who's gonna report
Here's
it?
where it goes
HIPAA.
side by side. Well, HIPAA laws are blown out the window if you start reporting this.
Yeah,
Who's gonna report it?
right?
Pregnancy centers.
if the
Have
government.
to, because they're mandatory reporters. So that's how they get the connection of shutting down pregnancy centers, and that's where that connection is.
So that's one of the main reasons I wanted her to talk, cause we don't understand a lot of this that's going on.
And it sounds, again, it sounds so good.
It
And
does.
philosophically, spiritually,
We all want it.
emotionally, biblically, I agree. I just can't go there. I-
So
I
then what do we need to do? What is our role?
Be aware.
Be aware when you
aware
start
of that.
hearing it.
When you start hearing it come up, let our legislators know. We're not gonna-
Email me, I'll send you the bill number, you can
Yeah.
call the bill.
Yeah, I wish what's the bill?
That's okay, we'll send it out. So does anybody else have any other questions for her?
I mean, I'll write it down.
HB 2197.
Thank you so much.
I just kind of find it fascinating, it's